What's up, Element Church? Good to see all of you guys, and it is a great morning to be together. Sundays are awesome. Sundays are awesome. Get to see you guys, get to be part of the church, and so excited to be here with you this morning. We're in the end of a series called Jesus, the Central Element, which is kind of a series we'll never get out of because that's part of our mission statement. Transforming lives with Jesus as the central element. And it's interesting to think about an organization with a mission statement, because that mission statement actually sets the course and the purpose for everything that organization does, right? You have, some of you go to a school that has a mission statement, some of you work for a company that has a mission statement, some of you have a personal mission statement. And today what we want to do as we kind of wrap up this series I want to talk to us about transformation to mission. Around here we talk about getting the gospel to people, getting people into community, getting community into transformation, and then getting transformed lives or transformation to mission. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to look into the camera, welcome our live stream, and those who are watching later by recording. We love you. You are part of this. We're glad that you're here. And I want to welcome all generations, because this is a multi-generational church. We have babies all the way up to grandmas and grandpas, poppies and meemaws. Is that whatever words you want to use, and everything in between. And we love coming down here to campus and ministering to you students, and we're really glad you're here. By the way, some of our students are on the crew retreat this weekend. So keep praying for them, and that's a really, really cool thing. So today, as we talk about transformation to mission, I wanted to start out with a quote. Dostoevsky said this. He said, "For the secret of man's being is not only to live, but to live for something definite. Without a firm notion of what he is living for, man will not accept life and will rather destroy himself than remain on the earth." Now that's kind of you could say that feels a little dark. It's like basically what he just said is he said an organization without a mission statement doesn't know what it's doing. And it's going to kind of tear itself apart. Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, said it this way. He said, "He who has a why can live to bear almost any how." So mission or purpose, I've defined mission, I wrote it down on my notes here, is a specific, important, assigned task, job, or duty, or the purpose for which a person or organization exists. That kind of begs the question, well, what is purpose? Well, the purpose, if you define that, is the reason for which something exists or is done, made, used, etc. So organizations have a mission statement, and that sets the course for everything that they are. And I would propose to you that as a human being, you have a mission statement. And hey, humans, we are so good at coming up with our own mission statements, right? I don't know what your kind of under the surface mission statement might be. For some of you, it's like, my mission statement is to go to school and get a good degree and get a good job and make some money. There's nothing wrong with that being part of your life, but that's not a good mission statement. For some of you, it's a guy or a girl that you have your eyes on and you would like to marry them, or maybe it's just marriage in general. Maybe you haven't identified who that is yet, and you're like, that's my mission statement. Well, that's okay for that to be a part of life, but that's a bad mission statement. Yeah? I don't know what your mission statement is. Here's what's crazy. You might not even know what kind of running in the background operation mission statement you have, but we all have some mission statements, and we all have things that are driving us and moving us. Viktor Frankl thought that mission and purpose was found in our response to circumstances. I would say that's okay for that to be a part of your life, but that's not the main push of your life. Dostoevsky said that he thought purpose was found in appreciation or loving life, and that you didn't need to try to figure out mission, you just needed to love everything. And I think that's okay for that to be part of life, but I don't think that's a good mission statement either. Jesus actually thought the purpose of life was found in knowing God, and then actually putting God at the center of your life and then living your life with him. And there's three major families of thought or belief. There's a million mission statements we could lay out, but there's kind of three big categories we can touch on briefly this morning. One is Eastern thought, that's Hinduism and Buddhism, which we would say in the West, that's like even some New Age things kind of take on some tone of that. And really, it's this idea that there's an impersonal God, and that really purpose is about escaping the cycle of suffering or actually even being snuffed out, or in Buddhism, reaching like nirvana enlightenment and ceasing to exist. So the idea of purpose or mission in Eastern philosophy or thought is to escape who you are and to be snuffed out from who you are and to join kind of the ethos of the world. The secular view of mission or purpose is actually more materialistic and naturalistic. It's atheist, it's agnostic, it's time and chance and matter. And really what that leads us to is it leads us to this idea of we do it ourselves. Kind of the analogy for this would be Atlas. Have you guys ever seen Atlas? It's the guy that's like this and he's got the world on his shoulder. You ever seen that guy? That's that. That's the secular view is I pull myself up by my own bootstraps. In the Bible, it's the rich young ruler who's self-reliant. He's got all the things. He's wealthy and he's young and he's authoritative. He's in charge. He's the guy that walks in the room and lights the room up. You're like, wow, that's the guy. That's the rich young ruler. And Jesus says to him, hey, what's your life about? And they have this conversation. But really, the secular view is that purpose is to make your own purpose. Mission is you write your mission statement, and that's really what brings satisfaction and fulfillment. And by the way, the idea that satisfaction and fulfillment is the ultimate purpose is actually a secular purpose. And then the third thing would be the biblical worldview, and the biblical worldview is actually about relationship and then restoration. And the biblical worldview of mission is that you actually become you by being in a relationship with the one who made you. And that ultimately the idea of purpose or mission is that we look to God and we put him at the center of everything. Proverbs 29:18 in the Message paraphrase says it this way. It says, if people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves. But when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. When people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves. But when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. And I know so many people who say, Pastor Scott, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. I don't know what God's calling me to do. I love God. Should I quit being a student or quit my job and become a pastor? I would say, hold on just a second. Let's try to do a little deep dive here on what mission looks like and what is our mission statement and what is our purpose statements. And so I've got 4 ideas for you here today, and we're going to move through these. And then I'm excited to take communion together today at the end as we just continue to put our lives before the Lord together. But 4 thoughts or 4 truths about this idea of moving into mission. The first one is this, is that mission comes from a mission giver. And so often we think about mission or purpose as something that we're going to go discover or create or something like that. But mission actually comes from a mission giver. Os Guinness said there's no call without a caller. So let me ask you this question. Everybody look at me. Why do you exist? What's the mission statement of an organization is why do you exist? And I want to go all the way back to the very, very beginning. Why do you exist? Because God wanted you to. Bless you. Why do you exist? Because God wanted you to. And you go, well, that's not what should I do for my job? We'll get there. We'll get there. There's no mission without a mission giver. There's no call without a caller. Where we have to start is why do you exist? You exist because God chose for you to exist. That's actually beautiful if you stop and think about it for a minute. Why do you exist? You exist because God willed that you would exist. That's beautiful. That's not an extinguishment of who you are. That's not you having to create your own meaning and purpose. That's the God of the universe who made all things and spoke light into existence. And he said, I wanted you to be alive because I wanted you to be alive. And I'm actually, and you are too, the object of his affection and his love and his will. He said, I want you to exist. That's a beautiful thing. Why do we exist at the very, very beginning? Because God wanted us to. John Lennox said it this way. He said, I exist because God wants me to. This is the beginning of the Christian faith, not the end. But I would much rather have that than any of the degrees that I've got. So when we think about mission and purpose, we think about, I'm going to get a degree in that. And John Lennox is like, whoa. Before you talk about the degrees you have, which by the way, John Lennox has 6 advanced degrees. He has a master's in math and a PhD in math from Cambridge. He has a doctor of science from University of Wales. He has a doctor of philosophy from Oxford, and he's got a master's in bioethics from the University of Surrey. He's got lots of degrees. He's really smart. And you know what he said? All of the stuff I'm accomplishing, what I'd actually like to do first is to go back and say, God wanted me to exist, and I'd rather have that than anything else. So what is the purpose of humanity? Why do I exist? It's actually beautiful if we just stay here for just a minute. If you go into Genesis 2 and you look at the creation of human beings by God, right? Back in the book of Genesis at the very beginning of the Bible, there's so much in here, and I'm not going to read a bunch of stuff, but I would encourage you to go read it on your own time. It's a beautiful passage of historical, I believe, truth. Genesis 2, when God creates humanity. Let me just run through a couple of things that are in the beginning of the book of Genesis. Did you know that you are chemistry and you are physics? You are a body. God made you. Why do I exist? How did God make me? What is the purpose and the mission of you? I exist for what? Well, you're chemistry and you're physics. You are a body. You're also animated spiritually. God didn't just make a frame and a body with chemistry and physics. He actually breathed his life into us. So we're a body that's breathed and animated by the Spirit of God. That's really cool. Do you know it says that God saw that it was good? That's artistic. That's aesthetic. Do you know there's something aesthetic about you? When you put your clothes on in the morning and you look in the mirror and you go, dang, you know? God's like, that looks good. There's something aesthetic about us. It's beautiful. He put us in the garden to cultivate the garden. That means we're imposing a discipline onto our environment. We're actually working and we're stewarding and we're cultivating things. That's really cool. Did you know that rivers flow out of the garden? Biblical scholars say that represents the pursuit of knowledge and curiosity. That we're created in the garden with God, and then rivers go out of the garden and we follow the rivers, that life is about discovery. So you were created as a body, and you're animated and you're aesthetic, and you're created for discipline and cultivation, and you're created for discovery. Do you know Adam named the animals? That's taxonomy. Did you know that that's science? God is actually doing science with Adam in the garden. That's pretty cool. We got a lot of people that study science at Michigan State that come here. You're welcome. That's cool. We were made to work the garden. Now, if you take any one of these things and you break it out and you say, well, that's the purpose of why I'm here alone, then you actually start to break down the purpose why you're really here. But if you take any of those and you put them into this idea of relationship with God and then restoration, you actually start to get this beautiful thing, because there's no mission without a mission giver, and there's no call without a caller. So if we're going to talk about mission and purpose, we have to start with God. That's where we have to start. And if you say, well, Pastor Scott, I know people that don't believe in God and they have very purposeful lives. It's actually very interesting, because in some ways, I really don't deny that. I know a lot of atheist people that feel very fulfilled in their life, but I would say it's in spite of their atheism, not because of it. And so I don't have these on your screen for you today, but I've got a bunch of stuff in my notes, and I'm like, when I was prepping, I'm like, I don't have time to go into all this, so I'm not going to put it on the screen, but I'm going to actually spend just a moment here. Bertrand Russell, who wrote that the universe as he understood it, Bertrand Russell was an atheist, he wrote that the universe as he understood it was purposeless and void of meaning. The entire sum of human endeavors is destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system. A Free Man's Worship, 1903. Richard Dawkins expressed the same view. He said, the universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. From a book called River Out of Eden, 1995. William Provine put the matter like this: let me summarize my views on what modern evolutionary biology tells us loud and clear. And these are basically Darwin's views. There are no gods, no purposes, and no goal-directed forces of any kind. There is no ultimate foundation for ethics, no ultimate meaning in life, and no free will for humans either. Darwinism, Science or Naturalistic Philosophy, Origins Research, Fall, Winter, 1994. And this is Alex Rosenberg, is even more to the point. This is his quote: what is the purpose of the universe? There is none. What is the meaning of life? Ditto. Does history have any meaning or purpose? It's full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. The Atheist Guide to Reality, 2011. So you say, well, I'm an atheist. My life's really meaningful. The reply is kind of simple. We don't deny for a moment that atheists can live meaningful lives. But it is true in spite of atheism, not because of atheism. Atheists certainly do have meaningful lives, yet that is only because their atheistic beliefs are false. So to get a mission and a purpose, you have to have a mission giver. To get a call, you have to have a caller. And if you abandon that and you push that all the way to the bottom, what you actually find, even by atheists themselves who write on this honestly, is they say there's really, without a caller, there's no call. So this is beautiful and amazing that you exist because God wanted you to exist. I love that. And in John 21:15 through 17, Peter actually, I'll bake this in for a second. Peter actually has denied Jesus 3 times, and Peter's gone back fishing. He's like, I'm not a disciple anymore. I screwed this all up. Jesus is dead. I'm going back fishing. I don't know what that whole 3 years was about. That was crazy. And I'm just going back and I'm doing what I was doing before. And then the resurrected Jesus shows up on the beach and says, "Heyo." I don't know if he actually said that, but like in my head, he's like, "Heyo." And he's like, "Hey, throw the net on the other side of the boat." And Peter knows because that's what happened before. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is Jesus." And it says he jumps off the boat, he swims up to the beach, they have breakfast together, they eat fish for breakfast, I guess that's like a thing. They have breakfast together, and then after breakfast, Jesus starts talking to Peter. And it says this, and Tim read it for us, thank you, Tim. In John 21, it says, when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said. "You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." So pause for a second. A couple things in here. Why is Peter sad that Jesus asked him a third time? And this is where I'm not a Greek scholar, but the English language fails us just a little bit in this passage of scripture because there's some Greek in here that's really important. Because in English, we have one word for love. I love my wife and I love pizza. In Greek, we have lots of words for love. There's at least 4 main ones. We don't have to break all of them down, but in this passage, there's 2 that are used. One is phileo, which is a brotherhood kind of love. It's like a reciprocal love. It's like I scratch your back, you scratch my back. It's a transactional love. It's like we have a relationship because it's a mutually beneficial thing. That's phileo. And then agape love is a one-way, unconditional, godlike kind of love. And it's the kind of love that Jesus has for us. And so what's interesting in this passage is it says when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you agape me more than these?" Simon, Jesus says to Simon, "Do you love me with an unconditional kind of love that you're going to just love me for who I am?" And Peter's like, and you can read it, he says, "Lord, you know I phileo you. You know that I transactionally love you with a weak human kind of love where you scratch my back and I scratch your back." Well, how else could he answer? He just denied Jesus 3 times. Like, "Yeah, I love you unconditionally." He's like, "You know I phileo you." And and then what's interesting is, and Jesus says, "Feed my lambs." And then Jesus says again, "Simon, do you agape me?" And Peter says, "Lord, you know I phileo you." And he says, "Take care of my sheep." The third time, he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you agape me?" No, I'm sorry, "Do you phileo me?" Jesus changes it the third time. He says, first, "Do you agape me? Do you agape me?" And then he says, "Do you phileo me?" He says, "All right, Peter, do you love me with a transactional human, you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of love?" And it says Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you phileo me?" And he said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I phileo you." And Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." Why is this an important passage? Well, so many things. First of all, we don't love God the way that we should. We don't love God the way he loves us. And you know what he says to us anyway? "I made you because I wanted to make you. And it's okay that you love me with a broken human kind of love. Go feed my sheep. It's okay that you don't love me perfectly the way that I love you. I made you because I wanted you to be in existence, and I'm going to love you that way. And even when you don't love me that way, I want you to go and be on purpose and be in mission." That's a really beautiful thing, and Peter actually learns a lot in that passage. What I also love about this passage is that it puts a priority where the priority needs to be when we talk about mission and purpose, but it still points us to mission and purpose in a secondary way. Say, Pastor Scott, what do you mean? Well, the early church fathers talked about mission or purpose in two ways, and they said this. They said the primary mission or purpose is about relationship, and that the secondary mission or purpose is about restoration. So let me show you that in John 21. What's happening is Jesus and Peter are having a conversation about what? Relationship. And Jesus keeps coming back to relationship and love and exchange. And Jesus is establishing a foundation for God's perfect love to broken humans. And he's establishing relationship. And then Jesus says this, and hey, that's the relationship, and that's your primary mission and purpose, and now I want you to go and serve me. And he says the same thing to us. And it's beautiful that he says the same thing to us because I don't have anything else to give. And you don't either. What I have to give is a phileo kind of love. Now, I hope I move to more love for God. We always want to be doing that. But how many of you know, like, that's what we have to give? And Jesus is like, okay, let's go. We got stuff to do. And so there's a primary purpose and a secondary purpose. That leads me to point two, is that there are primary and secondary missions. I hope this will help you today as you're thinking about your life. The first primary mission is relationship. Jesus says, when he first met with Peter, he says, Matthew 4:19, come follow me, Jesus said, and I'll send you out to fish for people. So the first part of it is you come follow. Jesus didn't show up and say, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go become a fisher of men. He showed up and he said, I want you to follow me. Our first mission is always about a relationship with God, right? Come follow me, Jesus said, and I'll make you fishers of men. When I was 40 years old, I did a little silence and solitude, and I was traveling, and I remember being in this hotel, and I remember looking over some water. It was a really cool spot. And I remember talking to God, and I was basically like, God, I need the plan for the next 40 years. I'm gonna be here for 2 days. I just need you to just lay it out for me. I'm gonna journal it down, and then we're just gonna rock and roll, okay? And I really believe he spoke to my heart, and he was like, yeah, I can't give you that. And I remember kind of saying, I don't remember exactly the words, but I think I was something like, well, God, that sucks. And then what I sensed from him is that he was like, hey, it's not that I'm unwilling to give it to you or that I want to be mean, not give it. It was like, I couldn't give it all to you if I wanted to because you wouldn't understand it. There's doors that aren't open yet. There's relationships that haven't come yet. It's not possible for me to give it to you. And then I've sensed him saying this to me, by the way, you don't need a map for the next 40 years. What's better than a map is a guide. If you're in a war-torn country and you got to get out and someone hands you a map, that'd be helpful. But what would be even better is if you had a guide who knew the lay of the land and the economic situation and the political situation, and that guide was going to walk with you every day and help you take the right steps. That'd be better than a map. And so often I want a map, and God's like, I can't give you the map because there's stuff you don't understand, and there's places you wouldn't know, but I do. And he told me this, I really believe in, and when I was on that thing, he said this. He said, you don't need a plan on paper, you need a personal guide. You don't need a blueprint, you need an adventure. And everything that we do for the next 40 years will come out of relationship between you and I. And I would just extend that same thing to you because our primary mission and purpose is not a thing on paper. It's actually a relationship with a living God. And the early church father said, that's your primary mission. Jesus said, come follow me. And that leads us, but that's not what most of us think about with mission and purpose. And I understand that. And some of you guys are like, okay, get on with it. I get it. You got to lay the primary foundation. Get on to great. Okay, we're going to move on to the secondary one, okay? The secondary mission is about restoration. And the early church father said that. In Matthew 4:19, Jesus said, come follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people. Let me paraphrase that really simply. Everybody look at me. Jesus says this to you today. Go make things better. Go make things better. Go turn the world into my kingdom, on earth as it is in heaven. Go add value to people. John Maxwell talks about that. I have a mentor who says that every day he asks himself at the end of the day, whose life was better today because they ran into me? That's a cool way to live. So go make things better. In Matthew 25 and Luke 19, there's these stories where Jesus is talking about the kingdom of God and about mission. And I'll read you these two passages, or just a piece of each of the passages. Matthew 25:15, it says, talking about someone who's in charge of a bunch of things, it's a reference to God. It says, to one, he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went out on his journey. So basically he's like, hey, this is my stuff. I'm going to go. I'll be back. And he dishes it out to his people according to their ability. In Luke 19:13, similar situation, it says this, so he called 10 of his servants and he gave them 10 minas. Put this money to work, he said, until I come back. So he calls 10 together, he gives them all a mina, and then he says, you guys good? You got my stuff? I'll be back. And then he leaves. Here's what's interesting. Well, there's so much interesting. But in Matthew 25, there's 3 servants. There's 5 bags, 2 bags, and 1 bag. So he has 3 servants. He gives 5 bags, 2 bags, 1 bag. It says each according to their ability. So God's actually giving out his gifts and talents to people according to their ability. That's really interesting. And then when he comes back, and you can go read that on your own, it's the same return on unequal gifts. So he gives 5, 2, and 1, but then the 5 returns back to what he was given. It's an equal return if you go back and look at it. And then in Luke 19, he has 10 servants. He gives them less resources, 1 mina for each, and he gives them all the same. So it's not about their ability, it's the same despite ability. And then there's unequal returns. So there's actually unequal returns that come back based on what he's given them. Here's what I want you to see is that no matter what you've been given or how you've been given it or who you are, you've been given something by God and he's like, that's mine and I'm giving it to you to steward and I'm leaving, but I'll be back. And that's our secondary purpose, is to steward the things that he's given us for his purposes. And that can look like service in John 13. It can look like building his bride, the church. It can look like serving people in our communities. It can look like doing Christmas giving, which we'll do in December, where we go to the schools and we work with the counselors and we say, who are the families that are working hard and need some help this holiday season? And we get that information and we get those families and we get names of kids and we get gift lists from the families. And then we break all of those gifts out into individual tags and we put them out here and you guys take those gifts and you go purchase them and you bring the gifts back and then we deliver them to the families for Christmas. Just go make the world a better place. Go love on people. It can look like that. It can look like lost sons and daughters coming home in salvation. It can look like growing to look like Jesus in character and integrity. It can look like stewardship, stewarding his stuff that's given to us, which is, by the way, our time, our talent, and our treasure. And we talk about that. Well, it's my time and my talents and my treasure. No, honey, it's not. It's his time and his talent and his treasure, and he gave it to you. Like a mina, like a bag of gold. And he said, now you got my stuff, I'll be back. We put his things to work and we have an accountability to that. And you can get a long way with a primary mission of relationship with God and a secondary mission of restoration of the world using the things that God has given you. Now, I don't have time to go on into all of this, but in the scripture, there's something called the Macedonian call. It's when the Spirit of God shows up to Paul in a dream and gives him a very specific place and a very specific task. And some of us have received a Macedonian call, but I can tell you something, you don't actually need one. It's cool if he gives you one, but you don't actually need one because you can get far enough with primary purpose and secondary purpose to get where you need to go. Colossians 3:17 says this, "And whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father." So what does that mean? It means whatever you've been given, use it for the glory of God. Whatever you've been given, use it for the glory of God. For me, I got saved, I say when I was 19, and I decided I want to spend my life telling people about Jesus. And then after that, I was in lay ministry, and then after that, I was a youth minister, and then after that, I was a worship leader, and then after that, I was the offering guy at a church. So what does that mean? It means I did the offering devotion for like 3 minutes every Sunday for 5 years. Say the same thing for 5 years in the 3 minutes differently. And then I was an associate pastor, and then I was a church planner, and I've been a youth camp speaker and a high school retreat speaker, and then I planted another church, and then I was a chaplain for Michigan State football, and then I was a pastor coach, and then I was a church consultant, and I was a football player and a homecoming king and a musician, and I've written plays, and I've built websites. What else am I gonna do? I don't know. That's pretty cool and pretty exciting. But here's what I know, whatever I'm doing, I'm gonna use it for his glory. I'm going to use it to build the kingdom. And I'm going to remember that that's a secondary purpose because the primary purpose is that I walk with him. And there's these things, we can mess this up because we either exclude one of the missions or we misprioritize them. But we prioritize relationship with God first, and then we put restoration second. There's more there to say, but I got to move. I'll just wrap that with this. Relationship plus restoration. We have to keep them together and we have to keep them in proper order. That's our primary and secondary callings. That moves me to number 3, is moving into mission is a process. So some of you guys are like, well, I've been walking with Jesus for a while and I've been trying to serve him, but I just am not still sure. It doesn't feel settled. That's because it's a process. Because mission is not something you do once and then you're like, oh, I've done it. Completed. You don't sing a song as a worship leader and you're like, oh, I'm done. You lead worship, right? Mission is a process. Mission is something we do over and over and over again. Matthew 16, Jesus says the kingdom of God is like this. It's like a little bit of leaven that you put into a dough, and over time it takes it over. It's like a mustard seed which you plant in the ground and actually grows up into this big tree, because mission is a process. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And we talked about that passage last weekend, and we talked about this idea of transformation, this metamorphosis, this idea that a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. That's a process, y'all. Like a caterpillar doesn't crawl on the ground and like it's munching a leaf and it's like, why am I not a butterfly? It's like, because you've got to eat a lot of leaves. You're going to need to get fat and tubby, and you're going to need to get some resource because you're going to go in a cocoon and it's going to get dark, and you're going to need all of that resource in order to turn into jello and then actually start to build a butterfly. Right? And you're like, well, I just, like crawling and eating a leaf, and you're just like, oh, I just don't know if God's using my life. Dude, just stay in the process. Just keep on the process, because metamorphosis is a process. And so there are filters for working on our primary identity. That's our relationship with God: Bible, prayer, community, silence and solitude, reflection, journaling, worship, 21 days of prayer, soaping. And then there are filters or things or practices we put into place for our secondary callings as they're in process. What's our giftedness? What are you gifted at? Work with your hands, speak with your mouth, lead with your influence, shepherd or pastor, have compassion, have hospitality. I don't know what gifting God has given you, and you may not even quite know yet, because a butterfly, I don't know, does the caterpillar know it's going to fly? I'm not sure. But the caterpillar keeps munching leaves and moving so that it can move into the thing that it's called to do. What is your giftedness? What resources do you have? Do you know some of us are born into families with incredible resource? That's not just financial, although it could be financial. It could be anything. Some of you have families that you grew up in and you learned leadership in your home. Some of you grew up in homes where you learned incredible compassion. Some of you grew up in homes that were full of trial and struggle and pain, and you know how to go to the deep places with people. So what resources do you have? What family were you born into? What country do you live in? How do you think about things? What's your education? We can do all of these things. Evaluating your experiences, just stopping and reflecting on what you do and what you have done. And by the way, joining a team at the church, if I could just do like a little sidebar here, if you're like, I need to continue to press into mission and I'm not quite sure what to do, would you find a spot to serve around here and start serving? Because what you can do then is you can reflect on your experience. And if you join the eKids team and you go back and you hold a baby for a couple weeks and it pukes on you, and you're like, I'm not a baby person. Cool, evaluated experience. You're not a baby person. Some of you will do that and go back and hold a baby and be like, this is the greatest thing that I've ever done in my whole life. When can I do some more? Some of you want to run a soundboard and you're like, this is so cool, all the buttons and all the flashing lights. Some of you are like, that terrifies me. I'd hit the wrong button and it would go, and everybody would look back at me. I'm not doing that. Fair enough. So what is it? But it's evaluated experience. And so that's an opportunity. That moves me to number 4, and I'll move to close with this. But mission requires us to stop watching and start acting. And here's the thing, you can talk about the philosophy of ministry all day, and I can tell you primary purpose and secondary purpose and all of that, but I'll just tell you this, until you actually start crawling and munching leaves, you're not doing it. And the thing is that mission requires us to stop watching and thinking and being afraid and actually start into movement and start into acting. I'll just tell you, just do it afraid. Just do it with courage and do it afraid. Can I tell you something? You guys might watch me. You're like, you get up and you talk and you seem really comfortable. I am comfortable-ish. Can I tell you, I've almost never done anything that matters for God where I wasn't afraid. And can I tell you, I'm still today at 45 stepping in to do things that I feel God's calling me to do, and I'm afraid. So we never get to a spot, I don't think, where we're like, oh, I'm good now. Like we had 3 kids, and people try to give you advice to have kids, and if you've ever had kids, you know there's no advice you can give someone who doesn't have kids, who's about to have kids. Hello? You could be like, you need to know this about diapers. It's like, dude, you're about to get hit by a truck, bro. Kids change everything, and they're awesome. They're amazing. We raised 3 of them. You just got to do it. You just got to get in and do it. You just got to get in. Maybe that's a bad example because you guys are all like, no, that's exactly why I don't want to get in. Right. I understand. But here's the thing. I have three humans that I get to live with now that I wouldn't have gotten to before. Mark Batterson says, sin will complicate your life in certain ways that it shouldn't be complicated, but God's blessing will complicate your life in ways that it should. And for some of us, we didn't understand the difference of that. It's like when you step out with God, your life will get complicated, but it will be good. Proverbs 29:18, if people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves, but when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. Henry Blackaby said, right now, God is working all around you. Find where he is working and get involved. It's walking with a flashlight, you guys. It's when you're in the dark camping and you turn the flashlight on, you only can see the next step. You take it, and as you take the step, the next step becomes illuminated, and you do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and then you get to the bathroom. I thought you guys would think that was funnier than I. Where is he working? Where can you take a step into purpose where you are right now? Os Guinness said this, and this is my last quote for the morning. God's dreamers respond to the gap between vision and reality by closing it. And that's who we are, and that's what we do. So hey, organizations have a mission statement. Your life has a mission statement. It's to be in relationship with God and then to bring restoration the way that God would want us to bring it. And he's given us gifts and talents, time, talent, treasure, and we're to steward them and use them for his purposes. And there's all sorts of practical ways that we can do that around here. You can give financially. You can join a team. You can join us mission trip to MSU, and you can just walk and hand out cards and high five people and smile. You can get involved in Christmas giving as it comes up. Right now, last week, we just launched our school programs, and we're doing Christian Student Union twice a week at the middle school, and Fellowship of Christian Athletes is led by the students, but it's at the high school. You can serve and help with that. We had so many middle schoolers this week at the 2 CSU clubs, and we got done with the second CSU club, and we all looked at each other, and we were like, they were crazy. Middle schoolers are crazy. And I love, Nikki said this, she said they were crazy, but they weren't rude. They were crazy. And we all looked at each other and we're like, can we do that again next week? This was crazy. Some of you, you're built for that. And you know what? It's important. It matters. And by the way, we are doing it next week. Because it matters. Because my life and your life has a mission statement and a purpose statement over it. And it's to know God and to love him and to walk with him even when you're imperfect in that love. But it's also to build his kingdom and to use what he's given us in order to do that. But we've got to move out of waiting and watching, and we've got to move into action and doing. And there's all sorts of ways you can do that around here. That's part of why we have a church. It's part of why we're a community, is that we get to put our shoulders together and put it into the plow and serve together and build God's kingdom together. And this is a little outpost to heaven, and we all get to serve it. And I want to invite you to do that in a fresh way, in a fresh season. I'm going to pray over us, and then we're going to take communion together. If you don't have a communion cup, you can lift your hand up, and that's fine. I'm going to just go ahead and pray, but our team can come and be giving you a cup as I'm praying. So, Father, I just pray over us this morning, God, that we would continue to move into mission. And God, that we would, each one of us in an appropriate way, would begin to wrestle in a new season, God, with the ways in which we're comfortable, the ways in which we give ourselves permission to sit on the sideline because we're afraid, or we think we'll mess something up, or we might hit the wrong button. Jesus, you already solved that problem when you talked to Peter and you said, hey, do you agape me? And Peter said, Lord, you know that I phileo you. You know that I'm going to mess it up. You know that I'm not going to do it perfect. You know that I don't have everything that is needed for the task at hand. And Jesus, you said to us, and you say over us today, feed my sheep. Take care of my church. Love one another. Build a community. Serve the students. Love on middle schoolers. Sacrificially give financially. Run a soundboard, sing a song, hold a baby, give a high five, wear a lanyard, help someone park. God, you speak to us to use what we've been given for your kingdom. And so, God, we have been asked by you, the creator of the universe, the one that desired for us to be, to join you, to build your kingdom and to bring restoration. And so, God, would you speak to each one of us what we need to do today? Yeah, to change our mindset, but God, to take a step. What step do you want us to take? So, God, this morning as we even take communion and we remember, Jesus, who you are, that the ultimate sacrifice was made by you for us, that you served us and that you gave yourself for us, and then you're asking us to turn and do the same for others. So, God, this morning, even as we take communion together and we remember you, God, I pray that you would speak to each and every one of our hearts about what we should be doing in this season. And so, God, this sacrament that's been in the church for thousands of years, God, this morning we come before you in a space of communion. And Jesus, on the night before you were betrayed, the night before you gave yourself for us, you took bread and you held it up to heaven and you broke it. And you said, this is my body that's broken for you. I'm putting my words in, but this is my body that is my life that's being poured out and serving you, and it's broken to serve you. Jesus, as you did that for us, we remember that sacrifice and we remember that we're called to the same. Let's take the bread this morning. And Jesus, in the most ultimate way possible, you hung on a cross and you let your life's blood flow out of your body in order to meet our need. God, you were generous beyond generous. You gave everything to serve and everything to meet my need. And I thank you for that, God. And I thank you that you did it and that it's done. And I also thank you that you did it and it was a pattern. It was a pattern for me to say, God, I love you. And your will be done, not my will be done. I will serve and I will give and I will go. And so this morning, Jesus, we remember the sacrifice that you made for us. And we also remember, God, that you've given us gifts and talents and lives to be sacrificially and generously poured out for others as well. So Holy Spirit, come and continue to speak to us as we take the blood this morning. Let's take the cup. Holy Spirit, speak to us. Speak what we need to hear. And Jesus, come and do your work in our hearts as we worship you.